I can hear myself. Cue Olivia Fiddle without the Olivia present. Excellent. Hello. Hello and welcome back to the Nurse Ratchet podcast. I am your host, Georgia, and I am flying solo. There is no Olivia today. Unfortunately, she is MIA. Hopefully she will be back. Just kidding. Olivia has some shit on and I was unable to find a guest. So today I'm flying solo and that is okay because hopefully y'all will stick around even if the entertainment is not here, okay? On the bright side, there will not be an Olivia fiddle. I have fiddled myself and that is all you're going to get today. In terms of updates, we are on the school holidays. What does that mean? That means that I have a week off without the children and then a week on with full-time children. And how do I feel about that? It feels like having whiplash. It really does. The first week I was without them, so I was like, I'm free. And then I had no idea what the fuck I was doing with my life. I felt like I was missing a limb. And now I have the children back, and here comes one right now.
Me?
Yes.
Sorry.
That's okay. What is it? Okay, bye. Love you. And then you have it, folks. Constant interruptions. Trying to be a social media girly and parent is a difficult one, but it is not impossible. You just have to persevere. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, we just organised a play date pending approval of other parents. And that's the way it goes, isn't it? So, yeah, today, what are we doing? We are talking about the mushroom trial, aka Erin Patterson was recently found guilty for the murder of her in-laws and friends of family and the attempted murder of one of them. And so I thought that it would be really interesting and fun time if we delved into the trial and sort of delved into who Erin Patterson is, what are the rumours around her, and really how the trial sort of played out. It's fucking fascinating. And I found a podcast, it's called Mushroom Podcast Daily, check them out. And they literally went day by day on the ins and outs of the trial. So I have listened to it all, put it all in my own words, and we're just going to try and recap. So we're not going to go into the depth of detail that they did. If you want all the details, go there. But we're going to essentially sum it up. So yeah, let's get into it. I think it will be a two-parter because I've got a lot of notes. Your girl has a lot of notes. Are you really that surprised? So today, what we're going to focus on is who Erin Patterson is and the opening arguments of the trial and what was said, what went down, so on and so forth. So join me and let's get into it. So Erin Patterson, the woman behind the Wellington. Who is she? Well, in 1992, buried deep in a forgotten roll of microfilm in the State Library, there's a one-line newspaper mention of a teenager named Erin Scudder. Interesting name, is it not? It noted she'd been offered a place in a science course at the University of Melbourne. Just another bright student from Melbourne's comfortable suburbs. Nothing extraordinary. But Erin Scudder didn't follow the straight path expected of her. She was born in a household of high achievers. Can't relate. Her mother, Heather Scudder, was a well-regarded academic in children's literature at Monash Uni. Her father, Eton, held executive-level corporate roles. Her sister became a scientist. Expectations were high. Erin, too, was meant to follow a path paved with logic, study, and professional stability. Little did they know. Instead, she zigzagged through life. She started degrees in science, accounting, nursing, and midwifery. Glad she did not follow through on that one, can I just say. Anyway, none of them completed. She even trained briefly as an air traffic controller, a job where some colleagues remember her as sharp and intelligent. Others, though, had less flattering memories. Scutter the Nutter, quote unquote, they called her behind her back. You know, a little bit harsh, but the nickname stuck. Interestingly, some co-workers alleged that she pretended to be sick colleagues that had called in so she could snatch up extra shifts. I mean, Why? Why not just say, hey, I could cover that shift? Strange. Others recalled her laughing when someone else was caught out. One reoccurring theme emerged in stories about Erin. You never quite knew who you'd get on any given day. So there you go. Those are the rumours. Not necessarily fact, but that is what I found in an obscure Guardian article. By 2004, she had left air traffic control and was working at the RSPCA. That's where she met Simon Patterson, a local council engineer. He was steady, reserved, drawn to her quick wit. They moved in together, went on camping trips, and built a life. That same year, Erin was charged with 5 offences after a drink driving crash. Drama. Apparently, she was nearly 3 times over the legal limit, doing 95 in a 60 zone in an unregistered car. The drama of it all. Not sure why or how that circumstance occurred. She didn't stop. She didn't leave a name. She actually just did a bit of a runner. Her licence was then cancelled for 2.5 years. She paid the fine in slow 40 monthly instalments. I would do the same, honestly, in this economy. A few years later, things changed dramatically. In 2007, Erin received a substantial inheritance from her grandmother. $2 million. Goddamn, girl. Spread out over 8 years, which is less fun. But she and Simon quit their jobs. They travelled around Australia, bought property in Perth and York, and Erin briefly opened a second-hand bookshop in the quiet town of Pemberton. Yet oddly, not very many locals remember her. Not sure why. Maybe she's just not memorable. By 2010, the couple had resettled in Korumburra, a small Victorian town in the Latrobe Valley. Erin claimed she wanted to be closer to Simon's family, particularly his parents, Don and Gail. When their first son was born, Erin openly praised Gail, calling her a lifesaver who supported her through those chaotic early days of motherhood. For a time, the family even lived with Don and Gail. But underneath the image of domestic harmony, there was some deepening cracks. Dun, dun, dun. Erin and Simon separated, reunited, and separated again before finally calling it quits in 2015. Erin remained in the region, enrolled in nursing again, and edited a local newsletter and became an active follower of true crime cases online. Same girl, same. She joined Facebook groups discussing infamous figures like Kelly Lane and Jeffrey Epstein and messaged in private chats where she vented aggressively. Don't we all? Court evidence revealed a string of hostile messages Erin had written about Simon's family. One read, "This family, I swear to fucking God," end quote. Another, quote, "Why isn't she horrified her son is such a deadbeat that I had no choice but to claim," end quote, referring to her former mother-in-law, Gail. We will see in court, Erin described these messages as emotional outbursts during a stressful time. But to the jury, they painted a portrait of a woman seething with frustration and bitterness. Despite the tension, Simon described their post-separation relationship as largely civil. They co-parented well, took holidays together, and kept in regular contact. But in 2022, when Simon accidentally filled a tax return listing himself as single, it triggered an investigation by child support enforcement. Erin was enraged. The tone between them changed noticeably. Simon's brother testified that Erin began distancing herself from the family, skipping gatherings and losing the warmth she once showed. Not long after Gail's 70th birthday, a celebration Erin allegedly felt excluded from, yet she still attended, she issued an invitation of her own. A family lunch. Home-cooked beef Wellington. Guests, Gail, Don, Heather and Ian. 3 would be dead within days, and the world, once blind to the name Erin Patterson, would come to know it all too well. What started as a line in a university acceptance list has now ended in infamy. Erin Patterson, no longer a student of science, but a convicted murderer. So let's talk about the lunch in question, the lunch that changed literally everything in Erin's life. It was Saturday, July 29th, 2023. It was cold in Leongatha. The kind of brittle, wintry chill where you keep your coat on until the kettle's boiled. You know, thick winter sock vibes, you know what I'm saying? Erin Patterson was preparing lunch at her modest brick home on Parrot Crescent in the heart of town. Nothing fancy on the surface, just a family get-together, apparently. On the invite list, her former in-laws, Gail and Don Patterson, Gail's sister, Heather Wilkinson, and Heather's husband Ian, the local Baptist pastor. Erin's estranged husband Simon was also on the invite list. He declined, however. Her 2 kids were home, but they didn't sit down to eat with the guests. The centrepiece of the meal was a beef Wellington, a puff pastry wrapped classic, rich with mushroom duxelles. But according to Erin's own testimony, the mushrooms weren't all store-bought. She said she mixed several varieties together, some from a local Asian grocery store, others from a market, and potentially, though she denies it at times, some she foraged herself. And here's a detail that got a lot of attention during the trial. Pastor Ian Wilkinson, the only survivor, told the court that Erin's plate was different. He said she served herself on a small orange plate. Everyone else, larger grey plates. Was that deliberate, or just how the dishes fell that day? Erin told the court she didn't recall using a different plate, and she didn't even own grey ones. But the image was already in the jury's mind. 4 people poisoned, 1 person survived. 1 person eats off a different plate. So the 4 guests sat down for lunch. The meal was eaten, devoured, if you will. Conversations were had. They stayed for roughly 90 minutes. Not long after, the symptoms began. It started with nausea, vomiting, sweating. By that evening, all 4 guests were seriously unwell. They were taken to local hospitals, first to Leongatha, then transferred to Monash Medical Centre as their conditions worsened. Initial diagnosis was gastroenteritis, but within 48 hours it was clear that it was something else entirely. Tests revealed damage to the liver and kidneys. Toxicology reports eventually confirmed the presence of amanitin, the lethal toxin found in Amanita Phalloides, better known as death cap mushrooms. Back at Erin's house, things got weirder. On Monday, 31st of July, 2 days after the lunch, Dr. Veronica Foote, a physician at Leongatha Hospital, received a paper bag. Inside, leftovers, the remaining beef Wellington. She told the court a registrar from Monash had asked her to photograph it and send it on to try to identify the mushroom species used. She laid the food out on an A4 copy paper, wore gloves and snapped photos. Those leftovers then tested positive for the death cap toxin. Meanwhile, Erin herself presented to Leongatha Hospital on the Sunday, the 30th, the day after the lunch, but she refused admission. She said she needed to go home to feed the dogs, check on the kids, and pack her daughter's ballet bag. Hospital staff were suspicious. They'd just told her they believed her guests had been poisoned with death caps, and now she wanted to leave. CCTV later showed her walking out. She was gone for about 90 minutes before returning. She did say she would return. During that gap in time, the prosecution alleged she realised the truth was catching up with her, and she took some measures to cover her tracks. By August 1st, Gail, John and Heather were all dead. Ian Wilkinson was hanging on by a thread, on life support, waiting for a liver transplant. And Erin, she was at home, factory resetting a second phone, dubbed Phone B, to avoid police accessing her original device, which has never been recovered. On August 2nd, Erin drove to the Coonawarra transfer station and dumped a mushroom dehydrator. Police later retrieved it. CCTV showed her walking into the green shed carrying the unit herself. On August 4th, police searched her home. She handed over Phone B. There was allegedly 3 phones, but by then it had been wiped clean twice. So let's put this in sequence. She served up a meal, refused hospital admission, disposed of a dehydrator, reset her phone, and never produced the original phone. All the while, 3 guests were dying and 1 was fighting for his life. And here's something that hit hard in court. Gail Patterson had written the lunch in her diary. One neat little entry. Lunch at Erin's with Heather and Ian. A quiet plan for a family meal. She showed up with a bottle of wine and she was dead within days. Some say it was premeditated. Others believe Erin never intended for this to happen. But the jury, they saw the mushroom photos on her tablet, the foraging posts on iNaturalist, the chat messages where she joked about hiding mushrooms in food to feed her kids, and they decided this wasn't just a tragic accident. Because one would argue death caps don't just accidentally sneak into your beef Wellington by accident. They don't dry themselves in a dehydrator, and you don't serve them to 4 people on the same day, in the same dish, without knowing what you're doing. So now we're going to go into the opening arguments of the Erin Patterson trial. As we said, Erin was married to Simon Patterson, though the two were estranged. Don and Gail were Simon's parents. Heather and Ian Wilkinson were longtime family friends and relatives by marriage. All 5 were invited to lunch at Erin's house. Simon declined. According to prosecutors, he texted her the night before saying he was too uncomfortable to attend. Erin expressed disappointment, claiming she'd gone to considerable effort to prepare the meal. Despite his absence, the lunch went ahead as planned. The meal Erin served was beef Wellington, a notoriously complex dish, allegedly made that day with a deadly twist, the inclusion of death cap mushrooms. According to prosecutors, Erin prepared 5 individual servings, placing 4 on matching grey plates for her guests. Her own serving, however, was plated separately on an orange dish. After a house tour and some small talk, the guests gathered around Erin's kitchen. The food was served alongside mashed potatoes and beans. The group said grace before eating, a reflection of their deep religious roots. The lunch appeared on the surface to be a typical family gathering. Then, Erin made an unexpected announcement. She told the guests she had cancer and didn't know how to break the news to her children. Prosecutors say the group responded with compassion, advising her to be honest and praying with her once more. By the next morning, all 4 guests began experiencing severe symptoms: vomiting, diarrhea, intense GI pain. At first, they believed it was food poisoning. Don and Gail made their way to the hospital and contacted Simon, who then reached out to the Wilkinsons. Realising they were also gravely ill, Simon drove Heather and Ian to the hospital himself. A detail that would later stand out in court came from Heather Wilkinson, who allegedly questioned why Erin ate from a different plate than everyone else. It was a subtle observation, but one that could soon become significant. While Erin Patterson claimed she too felt unwell, her symptoms were mild by comparison. She delayed going to hospital, only presenting on the Monday, 2 days after the lunch. Doctors, now aware of her connection to the other patients suffering from what they suspected was death cap mushroom poisoning, urged her to be admitted. But she refused. When Erin told medical staff that her children had also eaten the meal as leftovers, panic escalated. But she insisted the children only had eaten a version with the mushrooms scraped off. Why, you ask? Good question. Not sure. The children were eventually assessed and found to be completely fine. Police later recovered remnants of the meal from a household bin. The leftovers, now 4 days old and visibly decayed, were shown in court. Analysis confirmed the presence of death cap mushrooms, one of the most toxic fungi known to exist. As for the mushroom's origin, Erin initially gave conflicting statements. She claimed she purchased them from a Woolworths in Leongatha and from an unclaimed Asian grocer in Oakley. When pushed, she couldn't recall which store. At first, she denied using wild mushrooms altogether. Later, the locations she cited changed multiple times. Environmental officers launched a detailed investigation. No store in the region was found to have sold death cap mushrooms. The prosecution now alleges Erin foraged them herself from areas near her home, places like Outram and Loch, where sightings of death caps had already been lodged on a nature tracking site called iNaturalist. They claim Erin visited those locations shortly after sightings were posted, suggesting deliberate collection. Another exploitive detail emerged in court. The cancer diagnosis Erin revealed during the lunch was fabricated. Her barrister admitted this publicly. Medical records revealed she'd undergone testing but had not received any cancer diagnosis. Her name did not appear in any national cancer registry. Inside the courtroom, Erin Patterson appeared composed for most of the day. When her defence barrister, Colin Mandy, finally spoke, she seemed emotional, reportedly holding back tears. His opening remarks were brief, about 20 minutes compared to the prosecutor's 3 to 4 hour outline. Mandy reminded the jury that opening statements are not evidence. He acknowledged Erin's odd behaviour in the aftermath of the lunch, particularly her decision to dispose of a mushroom dehydrator later recovered by police at the local tip, but framed her actions as those of a woman in panic. The consequences of the meal, he said, were devastating, but accidental. He concluded by reminding the jury that Erin Patterson is innocent until proven guilty. He stated plainly, Erin did not intend to kill anyone. Her actions were not deliberate, and what happened was a tragic accident. Prosecutor Nanette Rogers, on the other hand, outlined the 4 elements the jury must be satisfied of to convict Patterson of murder. Number 1, that she caused the deaths serving a poisoned meal. Number 2, that her actions were conscious, voluntary, and deliberate. Number 3, that she intended to kill or cause serious harm. And number 4, that she was not acting in self-defense. Rogers admitted no specific motive could be proven, but reminded the court that motive isn't required for a murder conviction. And so the trial began. What started as a family lunch had now turned into one of Australia's most disturbing criminal cases. As the evidence unfolds, the central question remained: was this a tragic accident or a calculated act of murder? So throughout the trial, we heard from many different witnesses, including Ian Wilkinson, the pastor that barely survived the catastrophic lunch. We heard from Erin Patterson's friends, her Facebook friends. We heard from Erin Patterson's children. We heard from mushroom experts. We heard from data experts logging her phone and the computer websites that she visited and, the factory resets of her phones, all of those things. But the most interesting witness called was Erin Patterson herself. And that is what we're going to discuss in the next episode. Thanks for joining me. Make sure you follow the Instagram Nurse Ratchet Podcast. If you have any questions, please comment on the associated posts on the Instagram, or you can comment on Spotify episodes, or you can visit the podcast website and send us a text message, which will appear on the podcast website as well. You can also email us at nurseratchetpodcast@gmail.com. You can send us your nursing nightmare fuel stories, comment on a particular episode, or request a episode topic. As always, thanks for listening, and we will see you in the next one. Peace out.